What really motivates me the most is if I can be kind to myself on the inside, you actually can offer that and walk that medicine to other people. And the ego melts away. It's just all that is left is like kindness, like gentleness, relaxedness. Like you're good, you're okay, you're safe.
Welcome to the Multiple Truths podcast. We're your hosts, Holly
and Brittany. This is a space where we can come together healing in community, where we share our self-love journeys, insights, and wisdom.
A space with no hierarchy or judgment, fostering love, compassion, and respect, and where we honor our differences. With open minds and hearts, everyone's truth is welcome here. We are in this together.
Let's dive into the episode.
Welcome back to another episode of the Multiple Truths podcast. I am one of your hosts, Holly, and today I'm joined with Kiran Gandhi, also known as Madame Gandhi. She is an award-winning artist and activist known for her uplifting, percussive electronic music and positive message about gender liberation and personal power. She began producing music in 2015 after her story running the London Marathon, Free Bleeding to Combat Menstrual Stigma, went viral around the world. She is the former drummer for artists MIA and Thievery Corporation. She has been listed as a TED Fellow, Forbes 30 Under 30 in music, and BBC 100 Women. In June 2023, she was awarded the Songwriters Hall of Fame Abe Ullman Prize for Excellence in Songwriting and Leadership. Madame Gandhi's mission is to use her music and voice as a medium for a message about positivity, personal expression, and human thriving, which I am all about. I saw Madame Gandhi perform at the REI and Brooks Night Run event in San Francisco last year. It was a women-focused, gender-inclusive night run event, and I immediately saw her light. She has such a beautiful way of authentically expressing herself, and I really see her, and the messages that she shares and really the inner work that she's done is so clear. So I'm so excited to have her on today. With that, welcome Kiran Gandhi to the Multiple Truths podcast.
It's my joy. Thank you.
Yes. So I would love to hear just how you got started in the work of activism and music production. Just if you want to share the journey you've kind of gone on to get to where you are today, I feel like that could be a good place to start.
Yes, I grew up between New York City and Mumbai, India. My parents were Indian and they had moved to New York, and I was a born and raised New Yorker with a few years in Mumbai. And my parents really raised my brother and sister and I always thinking about giving back. And so they were good to not use privilege and everything that we were given as this point of shame or guilt, and rather as this tool for empowerment. And how do we use whatever gifts that we've been given to make the world a better place? And I think I underscore that because a lot of folks hide their privilege or pretend they don't have it because as a society, we shame each other for having privilege. But I think that's a huge missed opportunity, because if we can have honest conversations, removing the shame or guilt, then we actually can say, oh, wow, I have this ability to do more. I have this ability to step into this power to the extent that I choose to the extent that is comfortable and within my ability level. And so I think when we give space for each other to just do something, to take a step forward, we will take that step. When we cripple people with shame and guilt and things like that, I think it prevents people from wanting to acknowledge the gifts they've been given. So that was a big part of the values we were raised, my brother and sister and I, growing up. And then music was just in my bones. Like no one in my family is musical, but since I was little, if we'd go to a restaurant and there was a live band, I'd always want to get up and dance or learn the lyrics. I loved the Spice Girls. I loved the Backstreet Boys. I used to call MTV in India requesting music videos when I'd get off school because they'd put the phone number on the TV screen. And I'm like, I mean, eventually they're going to have to pick up, and they would, eventually, like I was on TV requesting in my baby voice, the Backstreet Boys or whatever. And so I just was so engaged with pop culture. At the same time, I also understood from a young age that there is so much misogyny, strewn about the airwaves. And it didn't really match my reality of incredibly strong matriarchal family members and really strong women in my life, going to an all-girls school, both in India and in New York City. I was constantly surrounded by women power. So though I give you those two contexts because my why and my sort of life purpose was formed from such a young age, which is, what am I going to do with everything that I have been given? my brains, my intellect, my health, family, all the things that I'm daily grateful for. And then my passion to want to make the world just a little bit better for people through the power of music.
Oh, I love that so much. Yeah, I think that's so powerful. Yeah. And you definitely, I love to hear that you were surrounded by really outspoken, strong women in your life too, to have that example, because I feel like that's a rarity as well. I know I have really powerful women in my life too, and I feel so grateful. And I think that having that example just helps you kind of like set up the trajectory to use your
Mm,
voice and feel safe using your voice because you've
yeah,
had that example, which is
so true.
huge. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm curious too, because I know for me, it's been a journey to really feel safe enough to use my voice. Like I've had to do a lot of like inner work, inner child work to feel safe because it was a huge fear for me of like being seen, being heard, sounding stupid, how I was coming off. So I'm just curious, like, have you always been comfortable using your voice, or has that been something that you've had to work up to get the courage to do that? Because you have a strong, powerful voice. I told you before we started, like I see you and I hear the wisdom, and it's so
Mm,
beautiful and powerful. So yeah, I'm just curious, like your process of really stepping into your voice.
mm. I really appreciate the ability for me to reflect on this question, because if I were to analyze my voice, I would say it's really taken so many journeys. It was so loud and confident when I was a kid, then it was quieter when I was more bullied in my teenager years,
Mhm.
then maybe quieted again once I was in college, and again a very sort of patriarchal energy, very masculine energy, and not just my college campus, but I feel like generally boys tend to be louder and more dominant in social settings. And so I felt quieted in those spaces, but then really loud again when I started my drumming, my career started to take off, then quieted again once I was at Harvard Business School. And I exactly that, thinking I'm this super confident, loud, wise, intelligent person who belongs, and then not feeling like I belong. And I think, I share all this because so many of us spend our lives avoiding pain or avoiding difficult situations or situations that have hurt us in the past. But I have to say, it's only because of those painful situations that my voice has become stronger, wiser, and actually I wouldn't even say louder, because where I've arrived now, and maybe the remaining two parts of that journey would be like voice would become angry, like there was definitely in that anger period, or like a very very like um entitled voice, let's say.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
which is where I think feminism has often landed as a result, but it often excludes many people because it doesn't feel good to be on the other side of someone's entitled voice claiming it when they've been oppressed. And
Mhm.
into a place where I am now, which is, I would say I'm in a phase of a very grounded voice. So
Mhm.
it's a lot more yogic, because I've spent so much time in the last, 5 to 10 years sharpening my own skills as a yoga practitioner, as a meditation practitioner. My voice is grounded. It's a lot more the isness of what is, and a lot more acceptance oriented, and a lot more love oriented, of course. And we all spend so much time avoiding pain, but it's those lessons that have sharpened the tools, even more, and have
Yeah.
allowed me to time and time again come back to my voice, not only with empowerment, but also gratitude, and the ability to use it as a skill set for teaching and for inviting, and for noticing when I've been on the other side of someone excluding me now not wanting to exclude somebody else, with a lot more awareness and inclusivity in the way that I'm cultivating my work. And then I
Mhm.
also would say with my voice, I spend so much time in different hangs. When I was a kid, I was always excluded from different cliques in school, and I used to feel so bad
Mhm.
about it. What was interesting is that in belonging to no one, I have found in my life now that I feel like I can belong to anybody. And
Mhm.
again, I hang with the yogis. I learn, the art of meditation. When I hang with the boxers, I learn the art of discipline. When I hang with the musicians, I learn joy. When I hang with kids, I learn creativity. So no matter whom I'm hanging with, I'm always expanding my exposure. And this has also sharpened my voice to be a lot more measured and aware that there are so many like people in this world, and it's really important to connect with different types of people in this world. So
Mhm.
my answers to you are, may we run bravely into the things that scare us most, because they might be our sharpest tools, to sharpen the things we're already good at. And
Yeah.
then may we increase our exposure so that we have more awareness to be able to connect with more people in our work.
Yeah. I love too that you've connected with so many people. It's like not putting yourself in a box of like, oh, I'm a yogi, so I'm just gonna hang with the yoga instructors, or I'm doing music, so I'm just gonna hang with people that produce music. It's like you are getting so many different perspectives, so many different energies to be around. And like I feel like perspective is everything too when you are speaking in such a way. It's like listening to the voice of your soul, what you feel is authentically true, but then also listening to the other people around you that have different perspectives so you can take into what they have to say into consideration too. And, like always keep your mind open, always shift and
Mhm.
change. I feel like that's something I'm really learning as I gain my voice. Yes, I want to speak authentically how I feel, but I'm also open to listening to other perspectives so I can also like take into consideration how other people feel and see things from a different lens.
Yes.
So I think it's so important not to be in an echo chamber, not just be surrounded by the same people. And I love how you just, yeah, you have so many different places that you are to get different perspectives too.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think too what you touched on, like in the beginning of having your voice as a young child, of like feeling like, yeah, like being so confident. I feel like that happens with so many of us, as children. We we are so authentic. We are just ourselves. And then it's like, then these painful experiences happen that kind of like chip away at the confidence
Yes.
and help make us feel like, oh, it's actually not safe for me to say how I feel, or this sounds stupid. When I say this, I get made fun of, or I get bullied, or whatever it may be. So it's like bringing back that childlike confidence, which I feel like even comes on the healing journey in a way of like integrating these younger parts of you, going back to those painful experiences and letting them know it actually had nothing to do with you. Like you're safe, you're loved, it's safe for you to still use your voice because it didn't. Yeah, it's like so many of us our confidence gets chipped away at such a young age, but it is a beautiful thing too, because then you get like it's the painful experiences where we learn the most. So I do agree with you. Yeah,
So
totally
true.
with that.
Yes.
I'm just curious. Now this is coming to mind. Have you done any like inner child or inner teenage work too? Because I know like with the teenager, there's a lot of angst and anger there. And I know
Mhm.
like, yeah, like that anger coming out. And I feel like that part of us needs like a space to let that anger out. I've done a lot of like inner child, inner teenage work. So I'm just curious if you've done any of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, I think it's required because otherwise, exactly that, we actually are not free because the lens through which we're seeing the world is still colored by these old experiences. And
Yeah.
the concept of this in India would be called samskara, something around. I always remember this word samskara because it has the word phonetically scar in it, which is us holding on to these painful pasts. And then, therefore, our whole life is tethered to either avoiding those things, or if there was a past moment that made us feel extreme euphoria, then we're constantly chasing those things. And so it's very interesting because underlying that, you could describe addiction, you could describe fear-based behaviors. And so it is really important for me to constantly find freedom by working through those things. So while I wouldn't say I've done inner child work in the sense of like someone who is a qualified inner
Mhm.
child, I'm going to heal your wounds, human, I would say through so many different modalities, whether it's psychedelics, whether it's meditation, whether it's cleaning my diet. Like, for example, last 4 or 5 years, like I've just been eating pure plant-based, gluten-free. I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke anything. So it's like even just clearing the channels, it actually just forces you to do deeper work quicker because you don't have any
Mhm.
outs. Like I can't eat badly. I can't like, try to numb and these kinds of things. You have to face the stuff quicker. So there's an element of that which I really appreciate. But
Mhm.
yeah, absolutely. Inner child work, teenage work, pain from a divorce, from a breakup, from a job, like whatever it is, we actually have to allow the natural emotion to come out and not block it, and take the stone out of the backpack so that we're light and free and like a child again, freshness.
Yeah, yeah, it's like feeling your emotions when they are present and getting curious about them instead of avoiding and numbing and like turning
Mm,
to food or turning to alcohol or drugs or a
mm,
dissociative, whatever it may be.
mm,
It's like exactly what you said too, when you kind of strip away like the alcohol, the drugs, whatever it may be that you
mm.
were suppressing in the first place, food, even like food, binge eating, emotional eating, that kind of thing to suppress emotions. It's like when you actually allow yourself to feel what you're feeling instead of turning away from it, that's how you really can start to heal, because you're no longer suppressing the pain. You're actually allowing it to be there and feeling it and releasing it,
Yes.
and I've had so many experiences too with plant medicine as well. It's like when you do plant medicine, I always say it's like the biggest act of strength and courage to do plant medicine, because you are literally diving into your shadow, it's
Mhm.
breaking down those walls and those barriers, which a lot of the time what comes up is these younger wounds,
Mhm.
these young wounds that you have to face. So there's so much healing that happens through plant medicine, psychedelics as well. Like when it's, facilitated, when you're really like in a space of healing towards it,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I fully agree, and I was gonna say too, you mentioned something about oh, yeah, I think people are worried to be vulnerable in front of other people, and so I think even doing that work privately, so let's say we all go and do plant medicine, like, a lot of that stuff is now opened up, and so then in the months to come, emotions are more at the surface, but which is a good thing. And I think people feel embarrassed to do that work in community. And so I do think a really good starting place is just sitting with yourself, sitting with source, and just doing that work privately. And the more comfortable we all get with our own emotions with ourselves, and the more confident we get with our own emotions and being our own sort of parent in that moment, then it's easier to let people in because no matter what, you're not judging yourself. And once we stop judging ourselves, then you're less affected by other people. I think people are afraid of others judging us, but what's interesting is that like if we love the thing purely and wholly, if we love ourselves purely and wholly, then you actually can see that somebody else is insecure and they're putting that perspective on you, but it actually has
Mhm.
nothing to do with you. So that's one of the bigger freeing lessons that I've learned. If I don't judge myself, then I'm not afraid of what other people think. It's only when I'm judging myself and then I'm afraid the other person's going to say something similar, and
Mhm.
it's going to be even more. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, with you saying like learning how to sit with yourself, like really like being able to like really sit with yourself. I think that's another thing that meditation has become so powerful for me. And I'm sure for you too. It's like meditation is really sitting with yourself and getting clear on like your own thoughts, what's going on up there, like actually being able to sit. And most of the time, like that's really confronting for a lot of people to be able to sit with your own thoughts. Like we do just about anything to distract from our own thoughts. So even just learning how to really sit in meditation with yourself is like such a powerful practice of getting
Yes.
more in tune with yourself and getting clear on how are you even judging yourself? What are those thoughts that are coming up? What's that negative self-talk? Cuz like so many of us speak so negatively to ourselves. We don't even realize it because it's
Yeah.
so unconscious, but it's like meditation is such a good way to start really like building that connection.
Yes, 100%. It's emptying the channels. And then what really motivates me the most is if I can be kind to myself on the inside, you actually can offer that and walk that medicine to other people and the ego melts away. It's just all that is left is like is just kindness, like gentleness, relaxedness. Like you're
Mhm.
good, you're okay, you're safe because I'm safe. Like I've chosen to be safe within myself and therefore you can also just come as you are. And a
Mhm.
lot of times the more sincere that work is, the less words are needed. Like when I
Mhm.
hang with someone who's just comfortable and confident in their own energy, not so much talking needs to happen. It's just like
Mhm.
it's just everybody's fine. It's so refreshing,
Yeah.
and it's not easy to find those kinds of people, but it's inspiring to become one of those kinds of people.
Yeah. I think yeah, just like being comfortable in your own skin,
Mm,
like being fully authentically who you are, showing up as who you are and not having a mask and being comfortable in that. I feel like, yeah, it takes a while to get there. Like I feel like it takes a lot because and we live in a society that doesn't teach us how to like love ourselves. It's
yes.
very much like always that.
Requires it, American society, capitalist society requires us to not love ourselves because then they can
Mm,
sell us more stuff. Like it's
mhm,
actually built into the economy. Like once we all wake up and start loving ourselves, then we don't need to buy so much stuff. Like when I open up Amazon and when I watch normal TV advertising more as like a social experiment, like I'm like shocked at how much random stuff they're trying to sell us at all times. And like
yeah.
we stay running our credit card for stuff we do not need. And it's been refreshing because I've spent more time in London these past 2 years and more in Europe. And even the European culture is definitely a little bit more subdued than the American. And so it's this really helpful moment where I can self reflect and be like, wow, maybe America financially is more abundant. Like maybe collectively we have opportunity. At least that's what's sold to us, but we spend it all. So I
Mhm.
didn't want to. I
Yeah.
wanted to just like plus one your point because
Yeah.
we are told not to love ourselves very intentionally.
Yeah, and it's the marketing. There's so much marketing these days, social media, everywhere you see marketing, and it's feeding on people's insecurities too. And like we've become a society that's bases our worth on how much we have, what we look like, our job status. Like there's so much external validation, but when you can really go inward and learn how to validate yourself, you realize you don't need all of those things.
Mm,
Everything comes from within. So I think that's the part of like the journey of really learning how to love yourself, realizing you are already enough, you already have enough within you, and not needing all of that external stuff to make you feel good enough or worthy of love. You know that you're worthy of love just as you are.
mm, mm.
So, yeah, I think, and that's a big thing. I saw one of your videos talking about like, may we all be motivated to love ourselves from the inside out instead of the inside or the outside
Yes,
in. Is that right?
yes, yes,
Yeah.
exactly right.
Yeah. And I think that's huge of like really learning how to validate yourself and not needing that validation
Mhm.
externally. Because,
Yeah.
especially with like social media and everything, that external validation is so prevalent in today's world. So I'm curious, like, how you really got to the place of like, not needing that external validation, especially being like a creative, putting your music out there, like how did you get to the place of just like feeling, being able to validate yourself.
Mm. I mean, I really appreciate this question. I don't think there's an arrival. I think I'm still on that journey. I
Yeah.
think it's and the difference is that I'm self-aware. I notice now when I'm feeling under-resourced or I'm feeling overwhelmed by work, which then creates a fear based response, which is feelings of anxiousness or overwhelm or can't manage what's happening, blah, 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 and then wanting to default to old, you know, just checking out, let's say. And so I think before I would just do it. And now in my 30s, I have a lot more awareness around, okay, you're feeling overwhelmed. So what are the immediate solutions? Like more sleep, longer meditation, actually. Mahatma Gandhi used to joke, uh, oh gosh, I have so much to do today. I have no time to meditate. But it's actually, I have so much to do today. I have to meditate for two times as long. I need to meditate for twice as long so
Yeah.
that when I tackle the day, I tackle it with my full sense of precision and clarity and calm.
Mhm.
And so I think for me, that's always the case, like just sitting deeper and clearing the monkey mind and allowing myself to drop back into like, with the more calm nervous system.
Yeah.
And and then usually movement, water, eating right, like bringing things back into balance, making sure I'm finding time to be in nature. So I try to
Mhm.
start with the healthiest, obvious. If I were literally an infant, what were like the three main needs? Like, okay, either you need a cuddle, or you need water, or you need food, or you need bathroom, right? It's like
Yeah.
honestly, adults are just we're some version of that even now.
Mhm.
So in terms of inside out, usually with the inside validation versus the outside, the second that I'm starting to seek outside validation, it's usually around those feelings, feeling insecure, not good enough, overwhelmed, this and that. And so I try to use these healthier practices to come back to myself and
Mhm.
not if I'm seeking validation from the outside, I like to tell myself I'm just not myself in this moment. I'm out of sorts. I'm out of balance because that's not my true self. The true self is just calm. It's just the isness of being a human on the planet. It's just like very in the middle, even balanced.
Mhm.
So that's
Yeah.
what it's got to be. But would other people recognize what you're doing? Does it feel good? Of course, but usually it's the ego that's lighting up. And so the same way the ego feels really happy when the ego gets an accolade is the same devastation that the ego feels if somebody else gets the accolade or if you don't get seen or blah blah blah. So it creates like up and down suffering, like joy and then suffering and then joy and suffering. So yeah,
Mhm.
the real opportunity is for us to find our purpose, to give humbly to that purpose without attachment to the outcome, and keep chipping forward. That's the real ninja status. That's what I'm seeking for myself anyway.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, yeah, you touched on great points of like when you're feeling that, it's obviously there's something out of balance within you. So it's like, okay, how can I sit with myself? How can I start to take care of myself so I can reconnect back in with me, my
Yes.
authenticity, myself, and realize none of that stuff actually matters. Like,
Yes.
I know who I am, I love who I am, and I'm safe and I'm putting out what I feel called to put out, and the right people are going to resonate with it.
Yes.
It's like coming back home to that confidence that,
Wow.
and it's, yeah, I really resonate with that, because I know for me, like when I do start seeking like external things, like what are people thinking, all of that, it's like, no, what do I think? What does
Yes.
Holly think? How do I feel about this?
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's like always coming back home to yourself, and like, yeah, it's like, and that requires spending some time with yourself and like really coming back to that center. Because yeah, I feel like so often just in today's society, it's like we do put so much of our worth on like the job status and what we look like and our social status and all of that. And what I've had to really come to realize on my journey is like everything comes from within.
Mm.
Everything, like all the love, all the comfort, all the safety, the validation, it all has to come from within.
Inside. Yep.
Yeah. And there was an example too, just to give like, because I actually did a women's group, and it was with plant medicine. It was a facilitated plant medicine with a women's group.
Beautiful.
And during that time, it was like I wanted to feel safe in a community of women, because like growing up, I that was an intention of mine, to feel safe in a community of women. And during that time, it's like I felt really called to go inward. And when I went inward, it's like I had to start really like deep belly breathing and like saying to
Mm.
myself, what if we didn't care what anyone else was thinking right
Oof.
now? What if we actually just worried about how we felt? Like, what if we stopped worrying about what the other women were thinking, and like, you're beautiful, you're
Mm.
great. Like, and I just like giving myself these positive affirmations and like deep
Yes.
belly breathing in my body as well, to like create that safety in my body. And then it felt like I was giving myself like the biggest warm hug, because like your breath is like, that's what we have access to at all times. Like that's what helps regulate the nervous system. So I was actually like creating that self-validation from within and actually feeling that safety from within. And that's when it really clicked for me. Everything comes from within. And when I felt safe enough within myself, then I was able to get up and talk to all the women and just be authentically me and like really like speak from my heart. But
Wow.
it was like realizing everything had to come from within. And then a big part of my like integration was that with that was like really getting comfortable with, if I was to lose everything, if I was to lose my partner, my job, my social media, my family, all of that, would I still be okay with who I am?
Mm.
And it was like really realizing I've actually gotten to a place where it's like, yeah, I actually feel like I would, because I do love who I am. Like I'm really learning to love who I am and what I have to offer, and just realizing that everything is inside, it's an inside job. And then at that point, then I did start, like, my social media got hacked, and I had put so
No.
much time and energy into my social media. I was at like 45,000 followers by that point, which I had put in so much time and energy, but that was the universe testing me. Okay, honey, do you still know who you are without your job, without the followers, without the likes,
Yes.
without the
Wow.
comments? And that was a big moment for me of like, yeah, like I'm okay with it. If I don't get this back, I got to a place of like, if I don't get this back, that's okay. Like it's
Wow.
okay.
That's freedom, because
Yes.
that attachment is what creates all of our suffering. And
Yeah.
so what you're talking about is really profound. And it's like some of the ancient yogic teachings, which is always funny to me, because I'm like, we know this. We know that all we have to do is just be. And
Yeah.
yet, humans, for the dawn of all time, we all struggle with this. And so I'm always interested in the deeper question, which is like, where did this come from? Like, we know better. Like what you're saying, what I'm saying, it's so, kids know this, right? Like it's so
Mm.
freeing. And yet we all struggle with it. But yes, the non-attachment and the ability to let go, and your example of, building a strong social following and then having to just be okay with it, that was the thing that you were rewarded for. The universe was like, okay, you passed the test. It's
Yeah.
profound.
Yeah. And then I got it back actually when I
That's what I'm saying.
totally
It sounds
detached.
like it's yeah, I
Yeah.
can tell. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, which is so crazy. But yeah, and like exactly what you said, it's like we logically know these things. It's like we know these things, but like it's so hard to know something and then fully embody it and feel it. The journey of actually being able to embody it, that's the work, you
Mhm.
know? Yeah. So it's just really, really interesting. But I love that that's something that you really talk about. Like it's like, yeah, I saw that video and I was like, yes, we need to
Yes,
be
it's
talking
the
about that
language.
internal validation.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that so much. We're interrupting this episode to share something close to our hearts, our virtual healing circles. We have been loving them so much and meeting so many of you incredible people through them. Brittany and I are passionate about bringing people together to support one another and heal in community. We felt alone on our paths for so long, and coming together in community has been instrumental to our growth, and we've both seen the importance in it. We aren't meant to do this alone. In unity and vulnerability, we find strength, courage, and support each other on our paths back to ourselves. Our monthly virtual seminars blend discussions, workshops, and practices to nurture your mind, body, and spirit. Whether seeking guidance, healing, or a listening ear, our gatherings offer a safe, inclusive space for people to connect, heal, and grow. Join us on this journey of healing in community. Together, we can heal, grow, and thrive. Register for the next circle using the link in the show notes. We hope to see you there. Well, I was curious too, because like being an outspoken woman, just in general, like I'm sure that you get some backlash. I know for me, like really using my voice and putting myself out there, it's like people like can get really triggered by an outspoken person in general.
Mm.
So I'm just curious, like how you stay resilient, like in the face of adversity. Like, do you have any strategies in place that help you kind of like maintain your positive mindset and not let negative comments get to you, which again kind of ties back to that self-validation. But I'm curious, yeah, for that with
Yeah,
you.
yeah. So I just pretty much bucket all external responses that have a negative energy to them. I bucket them in one of two things. One is I take them at face value. So even if the delivery is not with care or kindness, I try to take a moment and sit with the actual information, because ultimately everything is a learning. So if I've rubbed somebody the wrong way, I'm willing to get it right. Even if they're doing it in a way that's not inclusive to me, I'm willing to lean in and understand where I could have made the mistake. And that actually has been one of my greatest assets, because what tends to happen with me is that then I make the mistake in like a really low stakes setting, and I'm so glad I learned the lesson then, because I don't make the mistake in a space that is of higher importance, higher value, more people, a
Mhm.
stage that's really dear to my heart, let's say, or without being aware. I develop my awareness as soon as the information is brought to me. And so
Mhm.
that's the first starting. So if I can't actually learn something, if I used language that was not inclusive, if I, you know, did something that made somebody feel some type of way, it allows me to just be aware of it and then choose whether I want to continue and if I agree with them or make a change. And then
Yeah.
the second bucket is projections, right? And I think what we do sometimes is we make the mistake of overly saying, "Oh, they're just projecting." And because a lot of times people are projecting, but it's also could be useful information, especially if you're in the public
Right.
eye. Or if you're
Mhm.
in a relationship. Like everyone loves to throw this word back and forth in their romantic partnerships, you're projecting. But here's the thing, you're with that person daily.
Mhm.
So if you're going to be their intimate romantic partner, you should also lean into the things that are going to make them not tick so well and feel uncomfortable or feel upset. Granted that they're also doing the inner work to not project and to just be fine no matter what. But yeah, when other people are projecting, I think there's still a learning opportunity. And then, yeah, if they're projecting to the extent that it actually doesn't make my work or my craft better, and they're just complaining or they are not taking responsibility for their part to play, then I let it be.
Mhm.
But I do, in good faith, really genuinely try to be exposed to what they're seeing, because I think it has the opportunity to teach me something.
Yeah, and that's kind of going back to like kind of what we touched on in the beginning of like being surrounded by so many different people, hearing different perspectives. Like it's actually such an act of courage to listen to people and not get offended, like if someone's not agreeing with you. Like I love that you're saying this because I think a lot of people get caught up in the ego of like this need to be right, especially if you're a speaker in the public eye. It's like being embarrassed to admit that maybe you were wrong or you said something wrong.
Mm,
So I think that there's so much power in really listening and like really gaining that perspective and maybe adjusting the message if needed be, so you don't. Yeah, I love everything that you just said about really
mm,
taking that in and listening to the people around you in the first bucket, if like, and
mm,
really just like taking into account what people say, and
mm,
then also realizing some people may be projecting, so ultimately like trusting yourself,
mm.
trusting the message that you feel called to share and why you feel called to share it, and if you still agree with what you said even if other people don't, then that's okay, standing strong in that. But it's like being able to listen and shift if shifts need to happen is like really courageous, you know? So, because I think a lot of people are just like staunch into what they believe. I'm curious to just like any daily practices. I know you kind of talked about like you cut out alcohol, you're meditating, eating plant-based, all of that. I'm curious just like any daily practices or routines that you have in place that help you stay grounded and like connected to your purpose, because I know you're very purpose driven. So it's like what, yeah, if you have any routines that help you like stay grounded and on track with that.
Yeah, I definitely have a daily meditation practice every morning. I make a matcha and then I either listen to a Deepak Chopra meditation because I really like the way he's laid it out, which is 20 minutes. In the first 10 minutes, he's speaking on some wisdom, and then 10 minutes is just silent meditation. What's been really profound is that I've been using all of the nature sounds that I've been recording from both Antarctica and the Arctic to make my
Yeah.
own meditation track. So it's also been fun for me and my
Wow.
partner to like test them out and see, how can I dial them in and make them more effective. So it's fun, when you have community to practice these things with. But my morning meditation is really key. And even though every day is not, it's not like every day you're mind blown and like God opens the portals. It's more like you do it as a baseline because some days are going to be really profound and other days are going to be at least better than if I didn't meditate. It's like a groundwork. And then
Hmm.
it's the same for working out. I some workouts are much more intense with weights and with HIIT or cardio, and then other workouts are more yin yoga and stretching oriented, or just walking, some distance with family members or friends, or taking phone calls walking. So those two, like movement and meditation, are really big. And then it's interesting because my practice these days has been like, let me get emails and like admin and like finance work out of the way in the morning, just like to manage my own project and all of the logistics that are associated with my work as Madame Gandhi, even though I have legal team, agent, interns, graphic designer, web team. Like I have some, like ultimately I'm still the one managing everything, right? And ultimately people are asking me for, can you sign this? Do you like this font? Do you want this or that? Do you want the train ticket on Thursday or Friday, right? So there's a lot of
Hmm.
logistics. And so it's interesting. I've been using my admin brain in the morning and then trying to switch to creative brain in the afternoon. So
Hmm.
I don't know if that's helpful or not, but sometimes when I hear people's random ways that they organize their day, it does actually help me. So I'm just sharing.
Yeah,
And then by 6 p.m., like,
definitely.
I don't like to do anything. Like I've never been one of those people who like has their laptop in their bed and they're like grinding till 2 in the morning. Like, I just like that's not my style. I like to sleep early
Mhm.
and wake up early. And by
Mhm.
6 or 7 p.m., I'm chilling. I'm with family. I'm out in the world. I'm social. Or I'm kind of winding it down myself. But yeah, I try to keep my work like in the day and separate between admin and creative.
Yeah, I think that's good. And like spending time with your family at night and stuff, I feel like it sounds like you have a good balance too.
Mm,
It's like not too much. Cause I think too, when you feel such a profound sense of purpose, like I know this speaking from myself as well, it's like I feel like so lit up by it. And like
mm.
but what I'm seeing is I have to have a balance. I have to also live my life and like, spend time with people that I love. And it's not all about just that purpose. It's about being a good person in the world no matter what.
Mm.
But like also like having that time where it's like work time and then also when you're off and just enjoying your life,
Yeah,
you
and you know
know?
what? You're teaching me something as well, because I've also always had this romanticized belief that when you're purpose driven, you just got to be a lone ranger and you're never going to be with anybody and you're just focused on the purpose, which is very sort of
Mm.
like glorified masculine perspective. But
Mhm.
what's interesting is when I dial into the people who I actually respect, who I'm like actually blown away by, they are those people who both walk in their purpose at a high level in the public eye while still being totally in the family vibes, in group settings, like buying groceries like the next person,
Mhm.
taking public transportation. Like I actually respect it more because I find that to be harder. I find that to be
Mhm.
more ninja status, that you can just be with people and then also be in your purpose. And the reason why I share that is because actually it's a lot easier to like hide away and be like, I am destined for greatness and like I cannot hang with anybody and I am meant to be on this path of like solo
Yeah.
behavior. And it's actually easier to do that because then you're not accountable to anybody and your shitty behavior is not checked by anybody, and like
Yeah.
you're masked behind the public perception of thinking of you as this amazing person. And then when someone
Mhm.
hangs with you for 10 minutes, they're like, oh, the illusion is such a bummer because you're not who you say that you are. So
Yeah.
I really take a moment to like share that you also just opened my mind a little bit by reflecting that back to me. So thank you.
Yeah, of course, because I feel like too, there's something really grounding
Mm,
about
mm,
just
mm,
being a human, being here, going to the grocery store, hanging out with family, like that's grounding. And like the best work I feel like is from like a grounded place where like you're
mm.
really speaking to people. So it's important to have that balance to be grounded because we are here to have the human experience as well. I feel like for me,
That's
it's
so
like
true.
I am so passionate about the work that I do, but it's like, oh, I also came here to be human. So like do the, be here and
Yes.
do the human thing. So and it helps be grounded. So yeah, I love that. I think it's like a dance. I think there needs to be a balance with it, but it's like hard sometimes to find that healthy balance,
Yeah,
when you are so like passionate about the work that you do.
totally.
Yeah. And I wonder too, because like I love my morning runs. I go for runs in the morning
Wow.
and it's like where I get like my most like creative ideas or just like inspired thoughts. Like I'm curious during your
Yeah.
movement practices, do you get like
Running
insposed
is the
for like
best. I always
music and all of that?
no, I love this. Running is to this day is still the best for inspiration
Yeah.
because but what's interesting is that so I used to run marathons in my 20s. I ran 7 marathons in during that decade, and
Wow.
I always felt that after mile 3 was when all my inspiration started to happen. Well, what's funny is that I'm not really running distance like that anymore. Like I'm really in the boxing and the yoga vibes. And so because I'm not running like super long distances, I'm not hitting those magic moments that happen like 40 minutes in, 50 minutes in, an
Yeah.
hour in. So it is you're reminding me because I'm like, man, I got to put the hours back in because then you get the benefit of the running, which is these inspired, clear thoughts.
Yes, I always say like cuz I go in the morning and I'm like I'll sometimes get back later and I'm like this is like a part of my workday because this is like literally when I'm getting the most inspired thoughts and like
That's
it's like that
profound.
runner's high kind of in a way
Totally.
but like you're connected so maybe a little inspo to get back into running for you who knows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Because that's where the benefit comes. It comes like 30, 40 minutes in. So it's like you have to put in the work to receive the downloads. At least that's how it's always been for me. The first 20 minutes
Yeah.
is like you're still warming up and whatever. But
Yeah.
that's really nice. You're definitely replanting some seeds. So thank you.
Yeah, and I'm sure too, even like in boxing and or in yoga too, like, especially yoga, it's like you're so much connecting to your body. So I'm sure there's like inspired things that come through with that too. But
Yeah, I think with yoga meditation, especially this summer, like these past few weeks, I've been really leaning into longer meditations. Like I just came back from Thailand. I actually did my 300-hour yoga teacher training. So that's the second one that I
wow,
yeah, it's
congratulations, that's
thank
huge.
you.
Oh
Thank you
my
so
gosh.
yeah, yeah, it's profound. And I'm not a yoga teacher, but those teachings come through my music and through the things that I say on stage. So I always appreciate the self-study and the self-practice. But in the yoga, what I learn is like everything melts away and only what matters is what remains. That's because yoga is very detoxifying. It's very purifying. So that's what I like about it. It's very just all the fluff goes away. So that's
Hmm.
why I like yoga. And then boxing is just badass. Like anytime I was ever afraid of anything, it's like, bruh, you just stepped in the ring. I won my first fight this year. I had a fight in March. My partner trained me
Nice.
for it.
Well,
Yeah,
congratulations.
yeah, thank you. It was just like profound stuff, just getting my ass kicked in the best way, and then I won. And in your like it's such a metaphor for life. It's like you got to just put the gloves on and get on with it and give it your best shot and like trust that you've trained enough, like there's no
Yes.
so it's
Yeah.
yeah.
Boxing's a great form of exercise too. I feel like that is like so badass, like being in your body. Like it's actually a really great way to be back in your body
Mm,
too and like get out of the mind, like because you have to be so present. So
yes.
that's a great form of movement too.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Well, I think that's great. Like even you saying like you go to bed early, you wake up early. It's like those good night sleeps are so important too. Like even for like the routines and practices to help you stay on track. It's like
That's true.
I feel like it's like sleep and getting up and having those routines, meditation, connecting with yourself. Yeah, it's so huge. And I know something just for me, which I started doing not too long ago, is like after my meditation, I'll like go into a prayer. That's kind of like intuitively what like started coming through. And it's like when I pray, it's not necessarily like I'm praying more to like my spirit guides, my guardian angels, the ancestors. Like I
Mm,
feel so much support because I feel like we're doing work here to really like shift things and it
yeah,
feels very divinely led. So do you have like a prayer practice or anything that you connect with or
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting is that I grew up with like my parents did a good job of like introducing all of the religions to us. My dad's side is Sikh from the north of India in the Punjab region. My mom is half Irish, so my grandmother is Catholic and actively practices to this day, but her father is Indian, so Hindu. So we had those three religions growing up. And one thing that actually helped with is that then it didn't make it about the dogmatic rigor of like only following one orthodox thing in this really strict way that oftentimes is can be oppressive and controlling, and
Mhm.
instead it just showed us like, wow, so many people all around the world seem to really get value from this thing that we call religion, and that so many people really seem to benefit from the community that it brings and the ability to talk to source and the ability to have hope and faith and trust that you're carried by something higher. And, even as a musician, anytime I hear the speeches, there's always a honoring of a higher power, no matter what. And I don't think that's a coincidence. So,
Mhm.
absolutely, yes, it's been really nice for me to feel like I can access God and God energy through so many different modalities, through nature, through
Mhm.
these cultural practices, through meditation, saying a prayer in the morning and the night. It just works. It just works. And it also shows you what it is that you want for your life. Because whatever it is that you're saying to God is quite pure. Like it's not with the intention of impressing somebody else or saying what you think you're supposed to say. There's a purity and an integrity to it. And,
Mhm.
meditation, they say, is listening to God, praying is speaking to God. I always thought that was a really interesting way to
Yeah,
parallel the two.
yeah, I heard that too, which I love because it
Mhm.
feels true, it feels God's source, whatever you believe in, it's like that
Totally.
connection, it's like, yeah, connecting like prayer is asking, meditation is receiving. So I
Mm,
just like, yeah, I love that. It's something that intuitively felt like because I grew up pretty Catholic.
mm,
And while I resonate with some of the Catholic teachings, I don't necessarily resonate with the Catholic Church right now. I believe there's truth to it, but like I found my own connection with God outside of religion and like
mm,
it came through very authentically and it just feels true. It feels, I don't know, it's really interesting. So I
mm,
just having that connection even in the morning it feels like it's like a remembrance of like why we're trying to be that light because it's like unconditional love. So trying to be that like in the world and everything that you do.
yeah.
So yeah.
Hey guys, we are super excited to announce the launch of something new. We will be launching something called a community on a platform called School. That's SKOOL. It's similar to a Patreon, but better. It's a platform for learning and, well, community. Basically, it will give you access to exclusive content from both Holly and I. Holly is a certified holistic health coach, and she is also a certified embodiment coach. I have a degree in kinesiology and received a certification in personal training. I also am an advancing student in mediumship development and have been channeling spirit for as long as I can remember. Through our own experience and journeys, as well as our knowledge gained through education, we will be curating content to specifically aid in your journeys back home to self. This will include monthly guided meditations, guided embodiment practices, pick a card readings, energy healing, guided workouts, and healthy recipes. It will also include important teachings to help you become the most embodied version of yourself. Some topics will include how to connect with your intuition, how to tap into the psychic within you, how to heal your inner child, how to face and understand your ego, how to heal your relationship with your body and food, and more. This platform will also allow for conversation and connection with others who are also part of the community, giving you the opportunity to potentially meet other like-minded individuals who are also on the path of becoming the best versions of themselves. This path is not easy and at times can be isolating. We are not supposed to do this alone. Community is so healing and so important, so we hope this will provide support for you regardless of where you might be on your journey. It's only $22.22 a month, where you will have unlimited access to all of the content as well as the new content rolled out monthly. It will also give you a $10 discount on our monthly healing circles. Holly and I both struggled with self-image, self-confidence, knowing our self-worth, and knowing what it means to truly love ourselves majority of our lives. The truth is that we are not taught how to properly love ourselves in this day and age, and we are on a mission to make change. We owe it to the future generations to come. We believe that it is important to love your mind, body, and spirit cohesively in order to truly step into the highest, most authentic version of yourself. We hope to see you there, honey.
And another thing I want to touch on too, I want to touch on your music, because obviously like your music is so beautiful and powerful. And like, I feel like music is medicine. You know, I feel like so much music is like channeled messages, like channeled wisdom,
Mhm.
channeled messages.
It
So
is, yes.
yeah, I'm curious like your process with music and just, yeah, how that works for you, how that flows.
I tend to, if I'm in a private situation, like if I'm in nature, or if I'm even waiting for the bags at baggage claim, like usually when I have the thought for a lyric or a song, I'm usually by myself. And so I always take my phone out and record the audio idea. And then if I find myself singing it like a week later or, sometime later, then I sort of trust the integrity of the song. Like, oh, wow, this is something that's moving through me, that's within me and wants to be brought to completion. And I'll start sort of compiling, okay, this is the next body of work. These are the themes that are coming up. And then get ready to start putting the team together who's going to help cut the vocals or help produce. And even for me, I tend to like to open up Ableton, which is the software that I use to produce music, and put passes together of the songs myself and have a body of work that's ready to then sort of have a friend come in and play guitar, or another friend come in, I'll record them playing sax, so I can manage the sessions and produce accordingly and then bring it to life. And it's so gratifying. It takes me forever. So sometimes I have like PTSD because I'm like, oh God, like, but I think the more I get better at it, the more my skill set increases, then I don't see it as this overwhelming thing and rather something that I'm very well equipped to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and I loved even the song, What's Coming to Mind, just like the top not turn up. I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
that's the one that you sang at the REI event, and then I
yes,
listened to
it
that
is.
too. Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
love that your music, it has like positive affirmations, like channeled messages. Like I feel like it does, music in and of itself has its ability to like shift people's perspective or help them think in a different way. And I feel like
Yeah,
that song specifically was like, whoa, like a
thank
lot of wisdom being spit in that.
you.
So yeah, I just love
Good.
that.
I appreciate
Yeah.
that. I think also I feel like humans underestimate each other, and definitely the general population is constantly underestimated.
Mhm.
And I prefer speaking to higher self, and so instead of me dumbing down my music, or that's not the right word, like watering down my music or articulating myself in a way that would not be fully authentic, I trust that the way that I speak is accessible, but it's still with specificity and intention and intelligence and believing in something better. Because that's how I like when people treat me. I like when they treat me more than capable of doing something or understanding something, and then trusting that if I don't understand something, and if I want to, then I'll lean in to try to fill in the gaps. And so that's
Mhm.
how I write my music. I write it, this is what it is. If you vibrate with it, amazing. If it makes you want to lean in, and understand more, amazing, come to a show, I think
Mhm.
that's it's sort of like when people speak down to kids and you're like, "Bruh, this kid is so much smarter than you're talking to them like they are." Like they're gonna run
Yeah.
laps around you. And so in my music, I take that same approach. I don't speak to my audience as if they're just beginning. I speak as if we're having an intellectual conversation.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful way to do it too. And it's like, I feel like there's a piece of the music too that's like speaking to people's souls, like helping them like hear you. It's like not speak. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like people can hear messages better or more clearly in music than if someone was speaking it. So
Mm,
it's like a
yeah,
yeah, I don't know, but I love that. Like I feel like that's a beautiful way to approach it too that I'm sure a lot of people resonate with. So yeah, I love that.
thank you.
Yeah, and I know I think the last question I have is I know you're working on like a project to help create awareness around climate change. Is that right? I feel like I saw that. Yeah, I'm curious if you want to I just want to hear more about that if you want to talk a bit about what
Yeah,
the
so
project you're doing.
4 years ago, I started working with a friend of mine right here. I'm in New York right now, and his partner are in Woodstock, and they taught me the process of recording nature sounds and then micro sampling pebbles, rocks, trees, the recordings from the wind, the recordings from a stream, and actually making electronic music, micro sampling these field recordings, so that the idea is that the raw audio material is 100% organically sourced from nature field recordings. And so then if I take it and I make a kick drum or a snare drum or a synthesizer, all of that electronic music didn't come from studio hardware, it came from nature. And so
Mm,
I just found this process so profound. And you can apply the concept of microsampling to anything. I can record the sound of my voice, but what a worthy cause to specifically apply it to nature and give people music that is coming from nature. It's like walking down the grocery store and saying, okay, well, where did these chips come from? Where did this packet from come from? Where did this food come from? It's like the question I'm asking is, where did your music come from? And so
mhm.
if the electronics are now good for you because they're from nature, and the words that I'm singing to you are now good for you because they're thoughtful and they're with love and they're with good intentions, to me it's like the perfect package. It's like the perfect music. And so
Mhm.
that's sort of where I've been putting my efforts. I went to Antarctica in 2022. I had just finished my music technology master's at Stanford, where they taught us to build underwater microphones. I literally recorded the sound
Wow.
of the planet melting, literally glaciers melting into the ocean, which is the most tragic and most beautiful sound. And we
Mhm.
put all of those recordings out on splice.com, which is for people and producers to make their own climate beats out of. And then 2 weeks ago, before the yoga teacher training, some time ago, I just got back from the Arctic Circle, so the sister project, the North Pole, where I was able to do the same thing. So the project is
Wow.
expanding and evolving, and all the right people are slowly finding it and helping me fund it and things like that. But yeah, the idea is, how can I use nature to bring people back to falling in love with the planet, so that we can, behave in a more aware way and reduce plastic waste and move more mindfully.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that's so profound too. And like and the right people, will feel called to come to an event like that. Cause are you hosting events where you're like sharing that music and then are they like going through a meditation practice or what's
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
I've been honestly, it's like my Madame Gandhi.xyz is like what I'm calling that chapter, because it's like so sandbox and it's so playful, and I've done so many versions of it. Like yesterday I performed an electronic ambient set where I just like literally played beats that are fully sourced from the Arctic with my friend in Woodstock. It was Woodstock Arts Week. Before that, I was leading, yeah, a series of different ambient meditations while I guide it, and then the Arctic soundscapes are in the background. So right now I'm literally just beta testing, like, what are the best applications of this uh, idea, and where does it resonate. I just got off the phone with some folks who are involved with like UN Climate Week, end of September, to see if there's like a musical application. So when you do
Mhm.
something like very on the bleeding edge, like you have to also see like what is the practical application. But yeah,
Yeah.
theoretically, let's make music that then when people stream it on Spotify, a portion of the streaming royalties go back to a nature conservation organization because you registered nature as an artist. Like that's sort of where it's going. So it's very cool.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Yeah, so intentional
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
like very intentional. And I feel like there's something too where I see it in like groups of people. Like I feel like I don't know why, but it sounds very profound of like you leading people through meditation while that's going on in the background, and like even in the meditation, like speaking about our
These things.
planet and
Yes,
climate
yes.
change and what's going on, and like we need to throw more love into this, and like how to really create some change with it. So I feel like you're onto something with that for sure. Yeah, that's
Awesome.
beautiful. I love that so much.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yes. Yeah. Are there any other passion projects, anything you're working on right now that you want to share or talk about, or
Yeah, a few. I have a project with an all-female producer collective called We Make Noise, and I mentored 40 different up-and-coming producers, songwriters, musicians back in November to write an album. And basically they all wrote Madame Gandhi songs, to have the experience of writing for another artist. And it's interesting because I never do that. Like I would never have somebody write for me because I'm not like a famous pop star where like I have to churn out the hits and like my value is to get on stage and sing it. Like that's not really what I do, but I was willing to participate in the activity. And it was really cool. And so we just cut all the vocals in Phoenix, Arizona, of all places. And that's going to be an album coming out. And it was definitely out of my comfort zone because I was like, oh God, I don't want to sing these pop songs as Madame Gandhi, but I'm also grateful for the learning opportunity and to have only women credited on the album. So
oh,
yeah,
that'll be cool to hear.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. When does that come out?
In November around the election.
Okay. Oh, I'll have to give that a listen. That's so cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything like any other things that you're super passionate about? Anything that we missed that you want to touch on or share?
That's a great question. Um, Everything that I love sharing is always on my Instagram and my website, Madam Gandhi, and Spotify and all of that. But for me, it's always music and touring, music and touring. So those are my two offerings. So I'll see you along
Yeah.
the way. And on the tours, it's been fun. We've been expanding it to visiting universities and doing workshops, visiting museums and doing workshops, leading yoga classes, leading meditation classes. So it's been really fun for me as an artist too, to not just be on the stage in the music venue, but also to be offering a few more touch points of leadership in a more multidimensional way. It's been really cool.
Yeah, I feel like there's so many different avenues
Mm,
you're going down, which is like not putting yourself in a box. It feels like so many different avenues, like reshaping like your artistry or just like how artists show up. I don't know. It feels really, really authentic, really unique.
thank you.
So I love that so much. And I feel like, yeah, going to universities, touching the like being able to really speak to these kids that are in college that are going out into the world, it's like really getting an opportunity to connect with them seems really powerful too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because I could be putting out a lot more music in the spaces that I'm spending time doing yoga, meditation, boxing, spending time in nature. But all of those things came as a result of being only on a music industry trajectory and really not being fulfilled. Because
Mm,
I did live in LA for 5 years and I did play the Grammys and I was signed to a major and I worked at a major. And I could see that even though music is so beloved to me, there is so much darkness in the industry as we know it. And
yeah.
so it became really important for me to make sure that I had a strong center and a strong core so that one foot is still very much in the sexy LA, going to the Grammys, fabulous outfits, luxury,
Mhm.
like all of that. It's fun, it's celebratory, right? It's beauty, it's creative, but
Mhm.
that can't be the main thing. That's got to be like a fun activity like a few times a year rather than the only
Mhm.
thing that we're optimizing for and then flaunting on Instagram that we have it and somebody else doesn't. It was lacking that depth. And so that's where the last 4 years, my expansion into a lot more spiritual practices became vital. And I think right
Mhm.
now, as I share with you on this podcast, it's now coming back into balance. So half
Mhm.
one foot is fully in the music industry, and the other foot is balancing that trajectory with grounding practices.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. And I had so many chills when you said there's a lot of darkness in the music industry, which I feel like we all know. And it's like we need people like you that are bringing light into the music
Mhm.
industry as well. Like we need the light there to shift things. And I feel like too, it's like you are such a powerful speaker too. So we need you outside of music, like doing what you do. So yes, I'm glad that it feels balanced, that you have like, that one foot's in the music industry, one foot's out. You're like finding your way through. So yeah, I love that so much for you. So
Thank you.
powerful.
Thank you. Thank you. Awesome.
Yes, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for your time, for your wisdom, for your dedication. Like, I really feel you. I see you. I see your light. I see all that you do. I'm like so proud of you and in awe of
Oh,
just like
thank
all
you.
the work you do. So,
And thank you for putting me on. I'm so grateful to have this conversation. It's awesome.
yeah, of course. And where can people find you through Instagram? And then do you have a website too? We can put it in the show notes.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Okay.
At Madame Gandhi, and then madamegandhi.com.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. With that, we will talk to you next Wednesday. As we wrap up today's episode, we want to extend our deepest gratitude for joining us on this journey. Your support does not go unnoticed. If you enjoyed this episode and find value in our conversations, please take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback not only helps us grow, but also allows us to reach more people who can benefit from our community of healing and support. Every review, every rating makes a difference. Thank you for being a part of the Multiple Truths podcast family. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Multiple Truths podcast. Keep speaking your truth and spreading your light. We love you, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.